My name is Jim Gilstrap. I'm a licensed insurance counselor, and I enjoy working with insurance professionals to learn more about the products offered to consumers. If you would please take a moment, jot down my email address at jimgil63@gmail.com. If there's any questions that you have at the end of this video, please feel free to contact me, and I'll be happy to respond. With the explosion of social media outlets in recent years, more and more people are logging onto the internet and opening accounts so that they can stay in touch with their friends and family. With this growth in the medium, of course, there's a growing concern for liability issues as these individuals sign on to the internet and begin posting words and comments that could get them into trouble. During this video, I would like to highlight some of the liability gaps that might create an issue and also help you find coverage options for your clients. First, let's determine what is social media. Wikipedia defines social media as an internet web-based or mobile outlet where people can open up interactive dialogue. And I think that's a great definition for referencing. Some examples would include Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, MySpace, and any number of other sites where people can post their comments and concerns, including emails. Individual emails, whether they're business or personal emails, could also be considered social media. Where the danger lies is the fact that many people feel that they're anonymous when logging onto the computer, posting comments and other items, and therefore they may be emboldened to say things on the internet that they would not otherwise say in a face-to-face meeting with another individual. And therein lies the danger from the liability concern. So let's look at some examples of how this could be a concern. The first one might be an individual that posts on the internet some information or false information about a local politician that calls into question that politician's character and integrity. Another example might be poor jokes or practical jokes and sarcastic comments made. An example I have is a friend. He loves to joke back and forth among his friends. In a private, personal setting, he's quite funny. But in a public setting, he's downright embarrassing. And if he puts this information on the internet, where potential employers and relatives and other friends who don't know his character could see this information, it could be embarrassing for the target. So that's one area where he could get himself into serious trouble on the internet. A third example that we've got is an adolescent cyberbully that posts information, disparaging information, or mean-spirited comments toward a classmate. This is becoming more prevalent in recent months and years on the news. You'll see a lot of information about bullies and cyberbullying. I recently spoke to an attorney in Marietta, Georgia, whose practice is mainly dealing with mitigating cases involving bullying and cyberbullying. And on his website he has a lot of good information about this topic. If you want to know his email address, send me an email. I'll be happy to give you his internet address, and you can communicate with him on your own if you'd like. A fourth example I thought of might be someone who's cyber stalking. That could also come into play here too and be a concern. But if you need more examples on social media, just do social media lawsuits on your search engine and you'll have more examples than you'll need. Because as people become embarrassed, more and more people are turning to lawsuits for compensation. And what do you think they might be suing for? Well, they're suing for mental anguish caused by, first, slander, which is defined as an oral statement that conveys an unjust characterization about an individual that may embarrass them. And its close cousin to slander would be libel, which also is a written statement that conveys an unjust, unfavorable personal attack on someone. And both of these together, or either one of these, could lead to defamation of character. So what people are ending up being embarrassed by, they're suing their individual making the post or the comments or the blog on the internet sites. They're suing them for defamation of character, basically. When a person, let's take the example of our cyberbully. the victim in his case, the parents of the victim, the other classmate, may go to the parents of the cyberbully and sue those parents for defamation of character, because now that victim is having poor grades, maybe they have a lack of interest in school, other things where they may even need counseling. So there's compensation involved there that the parents want restitution from the cyberbully. If they present a lawsuit involving defamation of character to the parents, where do they turn for protection? They may look to their liability coverage under their homeowner policy. So let's look at the homeowner policy liability and see how it would respond to a claim for defamation of character. Under the standard homeowner policy, the insuring clause for liability reads, if a claim is made or a suit brought against an insured for bodily injury or property damage, then the insurance company would respond. They would respond by either paying the policy limits, and they would also pay for defense costs, which is above and beyond the policy limits of the liability protection. So even if the claim is false and groundless, the insurance company would still pay the legal costs, as long as it fits the coverage definition. Now you see three words defined up here in quotation marks. The first one is an insured. We have to determine, is this person an insured under the policy? Well, loosely defined, an insured means the policyholder and any resident relatives of the household. Okay, in the case of our cyberbully, yeah, the bully's protected because he's a child living in the house of the parents. So that fits there. Property damage, we kind of know what property damage is, physical damage to some tangible property. But the next definition, bodily injury, that's the one I want to focus on because that's where we're going to find the gap in coverage. So what does bodily injury mean? Bodily injury means bodily harm, sickness, or disease, including required care, loss of services, and death that results. So if we think back in the case of the cyberbullying, did the bully actually physically harm his victim? No. Did the individual attacking the politician, did he physically harm the politician? No. In the case of the practical joker, did he physically harm anyone? Not at all. So none of those situations fit the definition of bodily injury. The insurance company would examine the claim, cite this information under the policy, and essentially tell the consumer, it's not that coverage is being denied, coverage doesn't even exist by policy definition. So then the client would get a nice letter in the mail saying, thanks for playing, but you lose. Maybe not that facetious, but something to that effect, hopefully. Now, we've determined that the case of defamation of character would not fit the homeowner policy. So as insurance professionals, how can we talk to the consumer about filling this coverage gap? Well, first of all, we need to explain this gap to them so that they understand anyone in the household, whether it's the parents, the children, even grandmother living in the basement or something, would still be a risk for a cyber-type defamation of character. Two coverage options that we have available is, one is personal injury endorsement that can be added right to the homeowner policy. And if you're a forms guy like me, the form number is HO2482. This is an industry form number. Different insurance companies may have different numbers. But it'd be added directly to the homeowner policy by an endorsement. Another great option, and an option I would prefer to talk about, is the addition of a personal umbrella liability policy. What this would do is add an extra $1 million or $2 million of coverage above not only their homeowner, but their automobile exposure, watercraft, and other items in the house, other liability exposures in the house. So that's a much better option because it expands the limits of liability the company would have to pay. But I have a word of warning here on two items. You have to make sure it's a true umbrella and not a following form or an excess policy following form. Because what the excess policy following form does, it essentially says they will only pay a claim after the homeowner policy pays, and only if the homeowner policy pays. Well, we've already eliminated that the homeowner policy won't pay a defamation of character claim, so therefore the excess following form policy won't pay either. You have to make sure it's a true umbrella policy that includes coverage for the gaps in the policies and also has a drop-down feature that drops that $1 million of limits down above the policy's retention level. Now, we can spend 30-40 minutes talking about an umbrella policy and all the benefits it has, but for the purpose of this video, we just don't have enough time. So So what do these two items do? What do these two coverage options do? Both the personal injury endorsement and the personal umbrella policy, they broaden the definition of bodily injury to include libel, slander, defamation of character, wrongful eviction, wrongful detention, and several other nice features that would be good to have if personal injury is ever called into question in a claim. So that's how we would try to fill this gap in coverage. Unfortunately, both this endorsement and the personal umbrella have an exclusion for intentional acts. So if this person purposely goes out there posting information with the design to cause harm to the other individual, then there may be an exclusion. But you and I, as insurance professionals, we are not to make that call. What our determination is to talk to our clients before a claim happens, tell them of this gap, give them these two coverage options, and help them decide on the best course of action. We're not going to be in the negotiation of the claims process. Well, the biggest concern that an insurance professional can do for their client is to do nothing, and that's the biggest danger. I wish I had more time in this video to fully explain this, but here's my email address again. It's jimgil63@gmail.com. Please contact me if you have any other questions, or if you want the internet address of the attorney I mentioned, or even if you want to set up a 1 or 2 hour training program involving the umbrella and how it can fill other gaps. Again, thanks for watching, and good luck on your careers.